Here's my 2 cents. Here's my 2 cents about the meaning of Melania's statement. Now, nobody has quite the sort of immediate, intimate, candid, confidential, relationship with Trump. You already know where I'm going, right? What is it that actually happened? Is there any source? Listen carefully. This is very, very crucial. Follow every word I say, please. Follow every word I say. Most of us, the majority of us, have been in some sort of long-term, at any rate, sustained romantic sexual relationship with another person. Now, especially when there's a long relationship, you have what we would call, philosophically speaking, an indexicable de se standpoint that is hermetically sealed, metaphysically, epistemically, metaphysically and epistemically, what's the word I'm looking for? Hermetically sealed. Hermetically sealed. Nothing goes in, nothing comes out. Apropos the formal definition of that de se standpoint, which we should name, let's say let's call it the marriage of Melania and Donald. That marriage, over some years, if they met in 1999, slow down. What's the rush? Shit. I mean, that is like one of the most primary things. And that's why I get miffed at myself when I mispronounce things, because I'm going too fast. That de se standpoint consists itself of a conjunction or a synthesis between two individual, independent de se standpoints. If you want to read about the de se, read David Lewis or read Gottlob Frege's Der Gedanke. That'll get you there. Okay. The Lewis paper is called, is it Propositions de Dicto and de Se? It's something like that. And pay particularly close attention to the character, because in de se discourse there are a lot of characters. There's Gustav Lauben, there's Leo Pater, there's Borges, the writer. That's a very famous one that people love to use. The de se thought experiments are just, it's some of I mean, it's just as fun as sex, I'm telling you. Okay, so anyway, each of the individuals have their own standpoint, and then together they also synthetically, just the same way, if you know your Aristotle, if you have two objects and you glue them together, you get a third object, right? Or do you? Well, it's a philosophical question. Anyway, the de se standpoint is epistemically maximally rich. It is the most epistemically rich standpoint information can be accessed from. And if you have, and what's associated with the de se is quite heavily time, because the cumulativity and compounding nature of historical complex thought requires time and nothing but, well, no, it also requires you to pay attention to what you're thinking. But if you pay attention to what you're thinking in a sustained way over decades, that's like what that gets you the epistemic regime of the de se. Nobody can access it. It's far, metaphysically, it's very, very far distant, epistemically and semantically even more importantly, semantically, very, very far, from ordinary thinking. Not ordinary thinking, but just very far from any other epistemic regime that has that can receive information, that can receive and interpret information. Now, we look at Melania. It's very, I was listening a lot. I just discovered this guy. His name is Dr. Raj. That's R-A-J. Prasad. That's P-R-A-S-A-U-D. Prasad. My own guess is that the gentleman, doctor, he's a psychiatrist. He's based in the United Kingdom. My guess is that the gentleman is probably it's a kind of Mughal name, Mughal Empire, because so Mughal Empire, I guess that's the Taj Mahal was built by the Mughal Empire, and the Mughal Empire, of course, Muslim. So the only reason I guess that is because the gentleman is, roughly British Indian vibe, heavy British accent, of course, and Saud, Saud, I guess, the royal family Saud that exists now, after which Saudi Arabia gets its name. I don't know about the etymology of the word Saud. I would have guessed. I mean, we tend to think of the whole the recent, more fundamental Orthodox interpreters of Islam ever since in the wake of the Wahhabi movement, right? In the wake of the Wahhabi movement, we get the more kind of austere, severe orthodoxy of Islam. And I personally, I don't know enough. I don't know where the word Saud is placed in relation to that history. But so these are my guesses. Anyway, so what? Why did I get off on that? Oh, well, it'll come back to me after I make another roundabout. Roundabouts. Because now, speaking of roundabouts and the UK. Okay, so now this, I'm opening parentheses, but I promise you I will come back to the analysis of the Donald Melania Dese standpoint. I'll tell you I'll tell you my thesis right now. Melania, okay, this is the thesis. Let's see, 12:50 in, 12 minutes, 50 seconds in. This is my thesis. Melania herself, and only to herself, judges that her husband doesn't know what's going on. Therefore, she saunters up to the podium, and as Professor Cox Richardson points out, as Professor Heather Cox Richardson has pointed out yesterday, April 9th, 2026, Professor Heather Cox Richardson lingered on this point. And she actually apologized for being a little nerdy about it. But I myself found the point profound. No individual shall stand at a podium which has the United States presidential seal on it, outward facing. No individual does such a thing unless they're the president of the United States. And that apparently we'll have to take it up with the professor. I mean, the way that the professor was talking about it as though it were a blasphemy against the presidency. Okay, not that we're going to fuss about the blasphemies of the presidency. I mean, I mean, how's that for a toddler's irony? No. And Cox Richardson's only point, I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce it in the hyphenated way, Cox Richardson or just Richardson, but anyway. You can tell me, dear professor, one day. Now, clearly Melania had no idea about that, and none of us did either. That would be so symbolically significant. The First Lady is going to speak from the podium that has a presidential seal on it. And, the first things that I started thinking were, okay, what has he instructed her to do? Because just a couple of weeks ago, she was like opening proceedings at the UN and stuff. And she's been doing stuff with, like fucking Jeff Bezos or whatever they do together. I don't know. And, it's like, that statement was false, by the way, but true, false, who gives a shit? It's only logic. It's only truth, right? Okay. And she says bold things. And then a reporter, because everybody apparently has Trump's phone number, a reporter, I forget the name, I will learn it because that's historically significant. A reporter calls Trump and inquires with Trump. Wait, do you care to comment about what we just witnessed your wife did? And I mean, what would we expect? What kind of reaction would we expect? Either if he didn't know that she would be doing that, he would be angry, right? Stand behind the presidential seal? Like she's the president now, or what? And he didn't react to he said, supposedly, Trump said, supposedly, that he was unaware that Melania was going to do that? That she was going to offer testimony to the world, publish, performatively, stand solid, 10 toes down, as Welch says, and say, yes, women, survivors, Epstein survivors, to go testify under oath at Congress. That's okay with Donald Trump? Oh yeah, I didn't know she was. Okay. So it just occurred to me, it just occurs to me. If we suppose that Melania has uniquely privileged access to Donald Trump's behavior and she can read him as well as anybody, then maybe if she judges that he's completely out to lunch, so to speak, she can start asserting herself in more independent ways. And apparently, and I think Popok said this, or Myzelis or something, that the only people that Trump listens to are Melania and one other person. So Melania is advising the president now? I didn't hear of anything like that before. Okay, so that's my guess. It is totally wild speculation. Of course, by the time I upload this, it probably the landscape will have shifted again. I mean, this is just blistering history. I mean, what is that saying? I always forget it. Something like, did Lenin say it? That decades pass, nothing happens, and then a couple of weeks pass and everything happens? Yeah, well, they're welcome to history, y'all. This is what Nietzsche called pardon me. Nietzsche called it politics in the grand style. Politics in the grand style. When everything is fair in love and war, every woman, man, and child is representing their own self and their own interests alone. Allah gegen Allah. Everyone against everyone, everything against everything. Allah gegen Allah. Deutsche Amerikanische Freundschaft. Okay, so for those of you who have been following my Westphalia 2 concept, well, it's actually not mine. I would say that at least half of it would be owned fair and square by ChatGPT. I mean, how can I claim full ownership of a thing if an LLM is walking me through step by step, creating legal, bureaucratic, cultural, political, and so on, markers and coordinates for the construction of a new sovereign principality. And Claude does it too. You know, I've used Claude for it more recently. No particular reason. I mean, I find all the LLMs to be absolute rubbish. It is a total joke. They do nothing. You know, all you can, in electronic music, you know, it's common knowledge. I mean, the strategy in electronic music is what you do is you get your hands on a machine and you learn everything you can possibly learn about it. And then you conceive of all the fantastic ways that you can misuse it. You know, music gear. Listen to my music, right? It really, I mean, it sounds like I'm abusing machines, right? I'm a techno guy. I'm a rave kid. I'm techno through and through. Like, I'm born to abuse machines, right? So you put an LLM or a robot or whatever the fuck in front of me, I'm just fascinated. I don't see it as an adversary. I see it as a prosthetic augmentation of my own self. Why wouldn't I? Y'all silly geese, who's afraid of techno? Right? So you put the LLM in front of me, and, all kinds of crazy things come to the mind of philosophers. I mean, we talk about everything, and we think about everything all the time. We talk and think about everything all the time. So if you put a philosopher in front of an LLM, what's going to happen? All kinds of new shit is going to be bureaucratically, legalistically formalized, documented, and it will have legal standing. Do you not believe me? This is why all this takes an extraordinarily long time. It's very slow. It's very tedious. If you don't believe me, just read the work of Barry Smith or get a hold of the book by J.L. Austin, How to Do Things with Words, okay? People use the word performative today, but they misuse it just the same way that they misuse the term begging the question. The performative doesn't mean simply to perform. The performative utterance or the performative contradiction is when a performance creates metaphysically, legally, bureaucratically, socially, conceptually, a new state of affairs in existence that actually exists. So, seeing as how CEOs of LLMs fancy themselves as philosophers, right? They obviously know this. How many sovereign principalities, I wonder, have Dario AMODEI and Sam Altman and all the rest of them created? There's probably thousands of them by now, just sitting on the books. All the LLMs are open and functioning. I mean, LLMs. That was a slip. LLC, LLM. LLC, LLM, right? Okay. What do you need? You need what? Some slimy connections and a few bank accounts, right? And you're up and running. What do you need to create a new country? I don't know. I guess you need at least one slimy friend, and I don't know how it works. Again, I will just defer to Anthropic and OpenAI for this. And they don't even have an owner's manual. I mean, if there was an owner's manual, I would have flipped to this section. If there was a chapter on creating new sovereign entities, new sovereign geopolitical entities, I would have read it, right? But there is no owner's manual to my knowledge, right? So what? It's just one big experiment. It's just bedlam, right? You could do anything. You could misuse it any particular way you want. People misuse it all sorts of ways, and they hurt themselves profoundly and tragically. And, again, that's all by design. Just like all of the fragmenting of the geopolitical system into thousands of small sovereign principalities. I guess that's the real upshot of the so-called artificial intelligence, which is neither artificial nor intelligent. It's large language models. That the legacy of large language models is the absolute dissolution of the first Westphalian system. Quod erat demonstrandum.